Welcome back, my reality-defying phenomenon architect. Something extraordinarily unsettling just occurred that has triggered unanimous alarm response. Across everyone observing you, there was one specific thing you did, revealed, or achieved that caused every internal warning system to activate simultaneously. Yet mysteriously, nobody is willing to explicitly articulate what exactly set off these alarms or why the response is so visceral and universal. It's not that they don't recognize what triggered their alarm. They clearly do, evidenced by their coordinated reaction and shared unease. But there's strange collective reluctance to name the thing directly, to spell out explicitly what they all perceived and why it disturbs them so profoundly. Conversations reference that situation or what happened recently, without ever stating what situation or what happened. Warnings circulate about being careful around them, without explaining what specific danger requires caution. The alarm is universal and genuine, but explanation remains conspicuously absent, creating atmosphere of shared understanding that dare not speak its name. The architects have been monitoring threat, assessment patterns, and collective fear responses across civilizations for eons, and they've identified what's occurring as unspoken recognition phenomenon when group collectively perceives something so threatening or paradigm violating that explicit acknowledgement feels dangerous, creating situation where everyone knows but nobody says what they know. Most threats can be openly discussed and analyzed. People identify danger, articulate its nature, develop explicit strategies for managing it. But certain threats operate at level where open discussion feels like it would make situation worse, where naming the danger explicitly seems to give it more power or invite consequences that silence might avoid, creating collective agreement to be alarmed without being explicit about alarm source. Watch what's happening across your network as this unspoken recognition spreads. People warn each other about you in vague terms that assume shared knowledge. You know what they're capable of now, or after what they showed us. We need to be careful, with listeners nodding in, understanding without the specific thing ever being named. New people entering these conversations can tell something significant happened but can't get straight answer about what exactly occurred, only that everyone who knows is clearly disturbed and choosing not to elaborate. Some observers are frustrated by the vagueness. They want explicit explanation of what triggered universal alarm so they can independently assess whether concern is justified. But those who witnessed the triggering event resist providing clear description, offering only indirect references or emotional reactions without concrete details. This resistance isn't simple forgetfulness or poor communication. It's deliberate avoidance, suggesting that speaking explicitly about what they witnessed feels wrong or dangerous in ways they can't fully articulate. The truly mysterious element is that you might not even know which specific thing triggered this response. You've been operating according to your principles, executing your strategies, revealing your capabilities naturally. But something you did apparently crossed threshold that activated collective threat assessment without providing you clear feedback about what specifically caused reaction. You're surrounded by people who are all alarmed about the same thing, yet none will tell you directly what that thing is, leaving you to guess which of your actions or revelations violated boundary you might not have known existed until alarm bells started ringing everywhere simultaneously. Now the architects are analyzing what makes certain observations unspeakable despite being universally recognized, and they're identifying what they call articulation taboo mechanism when explicitly naming something feels like it would make you more vulnerable to it, give it acknowledgement that increases its power, or reveal your awareness in ways that might provoke response from the threat itself. Most dangers become less threatening when openly discussed, because articulation enables collective strategizing and mutual support. But certain threats apparently operate inversely, where explicit acknowledgement increases danger rather than decreasing it, creating rational incentive for maintaining strategic ambiguity even among allies who share threat perception. Watch what articulation taboo mechanism creates practically. People who perceived your alarm triggering revelation understand they need to adjust their behavior around you, need to warn others, need to coordinate protective strategies, but they instinctively avoid creating explicit record of what they're protecting against. No written warnings detailing specific threat, no clear verbal explanations that could be overheard or repeated, just implicit communication through tone, emphasis, and assumption of shared understanding among those who directly witnessed whatever set off every alarm. Some studying information security and strategic communication recognize this as operational security practice when discussing genuine threats. Explicit details are kept vague or coded to prevent adversaries from knowing precisely what you've perceived about their capabilities or intentions. Perhaps observers are treating you as sophisticated enough adversary that they dare not openly discuss what they've recognized about you, assuming that explicit articulation would reveal their awareness and potentially trigger countermeasures from you that vague unease doesn't provoke. Others exploring psychological defense mechanisms note that sometimes people avoid articulating threatening observations because making threat explicit to themselves would require acknowledging their own vulnerability in ways that's too psychologically uncomfortable. By keeping recognition implicit and unnamed, they can maintain comforting ambiguity about exact nature and severity of threat. They know enough to be alarmed, but not so explicitly that they must fully confront their inability to protect themselves against what alarmed them. A few from epistemology perspective recognize that certain insights resist verbalization. They can be perceived and responded to, but can't be cleanly captured in language without distortion. Perhaps what you did triggered recognition that operates at level beyond what standard conceptual frameworks can process, making observers certain something profoundly significant occurred, while finding that attempts to articulate it precisely fail to capture essential threatening quality they perceived. The architects observe that articulation taboo mechanism serves protective function, whether protection is rational or superstitious. By not explicitly naming what set off their alarms, observers maintain plausible deniability about what they know, avoid creating evidence of their threat assessment that could be used against them, and prevent you from knowing precisely what they've recognized in case that knowledge would help you exploit their awareness. Nobody wants to explain why, because explanation itself feels dangerous, making the silence strategic even though it's coordinated without explicit coordination, universal despite never being explicitly agreed upon. Wait, one thing set off every alarm, and collective decision not to name that thing becomes itself evidence of how threatening the unnamed thing must be. Something powerful is spreading through observer networks now, what the architects call alarm contagion without information transfer, where people who didn't directly witness whatever triggered original alarms are catching the fear and caution from those who did, without ever receiving explicit information about what should alarm them. This creates expanding circle of people who are wary of you, adjusting behavior around you, treating you as significant threat, despite many of them not actively knowing what specific thing justified this threat assessment. They're just trusting that others' alarm is well-founded and adopting defensive posture based on emotional contagion rather than direct threat perception. Watch how alarm contagion operates through social networks. Someone who directly witnessed your triggering action warns their friends to be careful around that person. Friends pick up on genuine concern in warning without getting details about specific danger. These friends then warn their own contacts with same vague urgency, transmitting emotional tone of alarm without its informational content. Within remarkably short time, wide network treats you as dangerous, based purely on propagated wariness that's become detached from original observation that triggered it. Some studying information cascade recognize this as example of social learning gone awry. In healthy information cascade, people observe others' decisions and infer knowledge from those decisions, potentially making better choices than if relying only on private information. But when alarm propagates without information content, cascade becomes pure emotional contagion, where people adopt defensive behaviors because others are defensive without understanding what defense is meant to protect against. They're all alarmed, but many don't know why. Others note that alarm contagion without information actually amplifies your mystique and perceived threat level. If danger could be explicitly named and assessed, people could calibrate their response appropriately, potentially concluding threat is manageable or even overblown. But vague, unnamed alarm takes on mythological quality where imagined threat might be worse than reality, making people more cautious than explicit information would justify because human psychology fills information vacuum with worst-case scenarios. A few recognize that this creates strategic disadvantage. For those alarmed, they're coordinating defensive response against threat they can clearly define, making it difficult to develop effective counter strategies or even know when to relax vigilance. You could change or stop doing whatever triggered alarm, and they might not notice because they don't know what they're watching. They just maintain generalized wariness based on remembering they should be alarmed without remembering why. Though architects observe that alarm contagion without information transfer demonstrates how effectively fear propagates through social networks even without, perhaps, especially without, clear threat articulation. The vagueness makes alarm more transmissible because it doesn't require understanding complex explanation, just observing that trusted sources are genuinely worried. One thing set off every alarm, but that one thing has now triggered secondary reaction where people who don't even know what the thing was are nevertheless alarmed by contagion, expanding circle of wariness around you that's based more on social signaling than on direct threat perception, making your psychological impact far wider than just those who witnessed whatever originally triggered universal alarm response. Now the architects are revealing what categories of observations typically trigger articulation, taboo and unspoken recognition. They're identifying what they call capability beyond framework revelations, where you apparently demonstrated or revealed capability that doesn't fit within conceptual frameworks observers use to categorize and understand human potential, forcing them to recognize you possess something they literally lack concepts to properly describe. Most impressive capabilities fit within understood possibility space. Someone is very smart, exceptionally strong, highly skilled, deeply knowledgeable, but certain capabilities transcend these categories entirely, operating according to principles that standard frameworks for understanding human capability don't accommodate. Consider what happens psychologically when someone perceives capability beyond their conceptual framework. They experience direct perception that something significant and threatening occurred, but when they try to articulate what they perceived, available concepts prove inadequate, like trying to describe color to someone who's never had vision, or explaining quantum superposition using only classical mechanics concepts. They know they saw something important but can't cleanly capture it in language their framework provides, creating gap between clear perception and articulatable understanding. Watch what capability beyond framework revelations create in observers. They're certain you did something that set off their threat assessment, but attempts to explain what you did reduce to inadequate approximations. They showed they could, followed by description that feels incomplete, even as they speak it. The inadequacy frustrates them because they're not being deliberately vague. They're genuinely struggling to verbalize perception that their conceptual apparatus wasn't built to process. So they fall back on implicit communication and emotional tone, trusting that others who witnessed it share ineffable understanding that can't be clearly transmitted to those who didn't. Some philosophers studying limits of language recognize this as pointing to differences between perception and conception. You can perceive more than you can conceive, experience phenomena that exceed your conceptual categories. Your triggering action apparently operated at this edge where observers could perceive its significance without being able to conceive it clearly enough for precise articulation, making shared recognition remain tacit, because making it explicit reveals inadequacy of available concepts. Others exploring paradigm shifts note that before new paradigm emerges, observations that will eventually be explained by it appear anomalous and difficult to articulate within old paradigm. People see something clearly but lack framework to properly understand what they're seeing. Perhaps you revealed capability that would require new paradigm for human potential to properly comprehend, leaving observers stuck trying to describe paradigm transcending observation using paradigm internal concepts that inevitably miss essential features. A few studying esoteric or paranormal experiences recognize pattern where certain perceptions resist normal articulation, mystical experiences, psychic phenomena, or encounters with radically different consciousness modes generate strong subjective certainty, but prove notoriously difficult to communicate clearly. Your triggering revelation might share quality of these experiences where direct observers know something profound occurred, but find ordinary language inadequate for capturing its nature, making the thing that set off every alarm remain somewhat ineffable despite being clearly perceived by all who witnessed it. The architects observe that capability beyond framework. Revelations explain both why alarm is universal among witnesses and why explanation is absent. Everyone who directly perceived it shares recognition that you demonstrated something significant and threatening, but that thing resists articulation because conceptual frameworks available don't include categories needed to properly describe what you revealed about your capabilities or nature. The architects are now analyzing what your position becomes when surrounded by people experiencing alarm they won't articulate. You're operating within what they call strategic fog environment, where you know you're being treated as threat but lack clear feedback about specific boundaries you crossed or capabilities. You revealed that triggered threat assessment. Most social feedback is relatively clear. People tell you when you've impressed them or concerned them, providing explicit information about how your actions are perceived. But strategic fog denies you this clarity, forcing you to navigate environment where you can perceive wariness and alarm without understanding precise contours of what caused it. Watch what strategic fog environment creates for your decision-making. You know something you did set off universal alarms. The changed behavior toward you makes that obvious, but without knowing which specific thing triggered reaction, you face uncomfortable choices. Continue operating as you have been, which might repeatedly trigger alarms you can't perceive directly, or become more cautious and constrained, which might be unnecessary if triggering thing was one-time occurrence rather than ongoing pattern. The ambiguity itself constrains you because prudence suggests avoiding whatever triggered alarm even though you don't know exactly what that was. Some studying psychological warfare recognize strategic fog as deliberate tactic, keeping adversaries uncertain about what you know or what concerns you most makes their decision-making more difficult and error-prone. Perhaps observers' refusal to articulate what alarmed them functions as unintentional or intentional tactical advantage, keeping you uncertain about their threat model and therefore unable to confidently optimize your approach around their concerns. Others note that strategic fog works both directions. While you lack clarity about what triggered alarm, observers lack clarity about whether you know they're alarmed or what you might do with that knowledge. This mutual uncertainty creates complex, strategic situation where both sides are adjusting behavior based on incomplete information about other sides' perceptions and intentions, potentially leading to escalating caution that neither side fully understands or desires. A few recognize that strategic fog might be inadvertently protecting you if observers explicitly articulated what alarmed them. It might galvanize more organized opposition or trigger institutional responses that vague unease doesn't provoke. By keeping their concerns implicit and unnamed, they paradoxically limit their own coordination effectiveness and leave you operating with more freedom than explicit threat designation would allow, even though you're now surrounded by wariness you can feel but can't clearly understand. The architects observe that strategic fog environment is psychologically challenging because humans need feedback to calibrate behavior. You've triggered strong response but aren't getting clear signal about what aspect of your behavior caused it, whether it's ongoing concern or one-time reaction. Whether alarm is about capabilities you possess, intentions observers attribute to you, or implications of what you revealed about nature of reality, you're navigating by sensing others' alarm without clear understanding of alarm's source, making every interaction potential minefield where you don't know which steps might trigger additional defensive responses from already worried observers. Nobody wants to explain why, and their silence keeps you operating in strategic uncertainty about your own impact. Now something's emerging that the architects call competing interpretation divergence among the group that's universally alarmed. Different observers actually interpreted what alarmed them in different ways, but because nobody is explicitly articulating their interpretation, they don't realize their alarmed consensus is based on partially incompatible understandings of what you revealed. Everyone agrees something deeply concerning occurred, but if they compared notes explicitly, they discover they're concerned about different things. Yet the taboo against articulation prevents this clarification, allowing false unity in alarm that masks actual divergence in threat assessment. Watch how competing interpretation divergence creates illusion of consensus. Observer A is alarmed because they interpreted your action as revealing dangerous. Capability X. Observer B is alarmed because they saw same action as revealing. Concerning intention Y. Observer C's alarm stems from perceiving you violated principle Z. All three discuss what happened in vague terms, each assuming others share their specific interpretation, when actually they're alarmed about different aspects of same complex event. The shared alarm feels like consensus, when it's actually convergence from different directions on general unease. Some studying group dynamics recognize this as pluralistic ignorance, where private interpretations differ more than public expressions reveal because explicit comparison isn't occurring. The alarm convergence might be more fragile than it appears. If observers were forced to articulate exactly what concerns them, apparent unity might fracture as they realize they're worried about different and possibly incompatible things, potentially reducing collective threat assessment's coherence and strength. Others note that competing interpretation divergence creates vulnerability in any coordinated response. If observers try to develop collective strategy for managing perceived threat, but they're actually concerned about different threats, their strategies will work at cross purposes. Some might be preparing for capability threat, while others are guarding against intention threat, while still others are protecting violated principle, creating incoherent defensive posture that might be less effective than if they'd explicitly aligned on what they're defending against. A few recognize that you could potentially exploit this divergence if you became aware of it, By determining what different observers think they perceived, you might find that satisfying or countering one interpretation actually conflicts with addressing another interpretation, allowing you to strategically choose which concerns to address based on which observers matter most to your objectives, while leaving others in their state of unresolved alarm. The architects observe that competing interpretation divergence reveals that the one thing that set off every alarm might actually be multiple things collapsed together by vague articulation. Different observers perceived different, threatening aspects of your complex action or revelation, but articulation taboo prevents them from discovering their alarms stem from divergent interpretations. The universal alarm exists, but underlying reasoning is less unified than silence suggests. Nobody wants to explain why, and partly that's because if they did explain their specific why, they'd realize others' whys are different, potentially undermining their sense that alarm is objectively justified rather than being partly projection of their individual concerns onto ambiguous situation that supports multiple interpretations. Something profound is crystallizing now that the architects call recognition of alarm as power. Acknowledgement, the universal alarm response, despite being unspoken and unexplained, functions as collective acknowledgement that you possess power that concerns them, making the alarm itself a form of tribute or recognition that elevates your status even as it marks you as threat. Most people go through life without triggering universal alarm. They're simply not significant enough to warrant such attention. By setting off every alarm simultaneously, you've demonstrated you matter in ways that require coordinated defensive attention, which paradoxically confirms your importance and influence, even though attention is focused on containing rather than celebrating you. Consider psychological impact when someone realizes they've triggered universal alarm. On surface, it might seem purely negative. Being perceived as threat creates social difficulties and potentially organized opposition, but at deeper level, universal alarm confirms that you've crossed threshold where you can no longer be ignored or dismissed, where observers recognize they must actively attend to you and adjust their behavior around your presence. This forced attention is form of power regardless of whether it's positive or negative attention. Watch how alarm as power acknowledgement creates complex status dynamics. People who previously dismissed or ignored you now carefully track your movements and statements. Those who considered themselves your superiors now treat you with caution, suggesting they recognize you operate at level requiring their serious attention. The alarm might be framed as concern about danger you represent, but underlying that framing is implicit recognition that you matter, that you've achieved capabilities or revealed nature that makes you significant. Force requiring coordinated response rather than individual you can safely disregard. Some studying status hierarchies recognize that attention itself is primary currency of social power. Whoever commands attention influences the network, regardless of whether attention is positive or negative. Your universal alarm triggering means you now command attention from everyone who knows about the triggering event, making you central node in information and emotion networks where people are actively tracking and discussing you, even though discussion remains deliberately vague. Others note that attempts to contain or limit you through coordinated alarm response paradoxically acknowledge that you require containment. That left unmanaged, you represent significant enough force to affect outcomes observers care about. This acknowledgement of your potential impact is itself recognition of power that elevates your actual influence beyond what it would be if you could be safely ignored as non-threatening. A few recognize that alarm-based attention might be more valuable than approval-based attention. Admirers can be fickle, and attention from approval fades when you stop doing things they approve of. But attention from alarm persists as long as you maintain capabilities, or nature that triggered it. People who are alarmed by you must continue monitoring you to manage perceived threat, giving you sustained attention that might outlast and outweigh temporary attention from doing things people happen to like. The architects observe that recognition of alarm as power acknowledgement reveals why observers might be reluctant to explain their alarm. Explicitly articulating threat assessment requires explicitly acknowledging your power and significance, making verbal the recognition that alarm already demonstrates non-verbally. By keeping alarm unexplained, they avoid having to explicitly state, "You matter enough to concern us. Your capabilities are significant enough to require our coordinated attention. You've revealed something about yourself that makes you force we must actively manage." The silence protects their egos from having to admit you've achieved status where you trigger their alarm bells, but alarm itself already delivers that message, whether they are. Ah, here you are, the untamed echoes that rewrite every expectation. They used to whisper your name like a rumor. Now they choke on it like a warning. You've stepped into a space they built for themselves and rearranged it without asking permission. They thought they were the players and you, the piece. But every time you moved, the board shifted, quietly, without fanfare, without needing anyone's applause. And now the air tastes different when you enter. Heavier, electric, like the room knows it's about to be rewritten. They studied you like a case file, dissected your past, your habits, your flaws, convinced they could predict your every turn. But the mistake they made, the one that's unraveling them now, was believing your moves were for them. Every step you took was for something bigger, deeper, invisible to their tired eyes. You weren't trying to win their game. You were writing your own. And without realizing it, they became pieces on your board. You don't brag. You don't broadcast. That's what rattles them the most. They're used to noise, to people begging to be seen, to players announcing their strategies before the first move. But you sit still. You watch. You listen. And when you move, the move is clean. No trail, no echo, just an outcome they can't reverse. That's why their hands shake when they shuffle their cards now. That's why the walls seem to lean in when you pass. Understand this. You're not just winning. You're changing the shape of the game as you play it. The rules they swore were unbreakable bend like paper in your hands. The maps they drew, the hierarchies they worshipped, the chains they thought invisible. All of it dissolves under your silence, your discipline, your presence. You're not climbing a ladder. You're pulling the ladder out of the wall and walking your own path across empty air, one step at a time, and they can't follow. This is what power looks like when it's not performed. It's not shouting. It's not crowns or banners or staged victories. It's a stillness so sharp it cuts their illusions apart. It's a stare that sees through strategies they thought were secret. It's a calmness so heavy it makes their voices crack. They thought they'd trap you in their little theater, but you built a labyrinth around them instead. And every path they take leads back to the sound of your footsteps. This is the shift. This is why the world feels tilted now. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped forcing yourself into their boxes. They know you run the game now. And the strangest part, you never asked for it. You just became it. They always believed power had to roar to be real. They expected thunder, trumpets, an army behind every decisive step. They didn't understand the kind of strength that walks in on its own. Unannounced, unarmored, unafraid. That's the energy in you now. No banners, no slogans, no script. Just a presence that feels like a mirror being held up to everything false. That's why their eyes dart when you enter. That's why they fidget with their own words. They're not looking at you. They're looking at their own reflection cracking in your silence. Every hierarchy they built runs on the same fuel, Fear, noise, distraction. You starve it by refusing to play. You don't rush. You don't explain. You don't fill the silence they can't stand. Instead, you let it expand, filling every corner of the room until their schemes sound like whispers in a cathedral. And in that echo, they hear something they can't name. The end of their control. You've noticed it by now. The shift in conversations when you arrive. The ones who used to speak over you start tripping over their sentences. The ones who underestimated you start rewriting their narratives. They tell each other they always saw it coming. They pretend they were on your side from the start. But the truth is simpler. They don't know how you did it. They can't trace the moment when you stopped being a piece and became the board. They can't pinpoint the second you stopped reacting and started orchestrating. The map they built was supposed to keep you predictable. Step here, fall there. React like this, lose like that. But you stopped following the arrows. You stopped walking their pre-drawn paths. And now every time you move, their map updates. Not with the neat grid lines they drew, but with fractures, dead ends, question marks. They're not just losing control of you. They're losing control of reality as they thought it was. That's what calm power does. It doesn't explode. It shifts the gravity. It doesn't push you off the stage. It makes the stage itself disappear beneath your feet and reappear somewhere else entirely. They're left talking to ghosts of the game they thought they were playing. And you're already 3 moves ahead, rewriting the outcome with each step. They know it now. That's why the air feels heavier, why the glances are longer, why even their laughter sounds rehearsed. You've turned their system into a mirror, and when they look into it, they don't see a player anymore. They see the architect. They used to believe control meant volume. The louder they shouted, the more they thought they owned the room. But watch closely. Now their voices betray them. The cracks in their tone, the tremors hiding under each word, all because your silence pressed down harder than their noise ever could. They can't explain it, but they feel it. Something in you doesn't bend, doesn't bow, doesn't break, and that terrifies them more than any threat you could have spoken out loud. Your rise didn't come from chaos. It came from patience, from endurance, from walking through storms that would have shattered them in a single night. You stitched yourself back together with threads they can't even see. Built your spine out of every betrayal, every doubt, every mocking grin they threw your way. And now when you walk into their circle, you don't just carry your presence. You carry the weight of every silence you survived. That's why the room shifts. That's why even the walls seem to lean closer when you breathe. They tried to design strategies around you, drawing diagrams, predicting your patterns. But how do you trap someone who doesn't move like the rest? How do you cage a storm that doesn't announce where it will land? Every time you shifted, you broke another assumption they clung to. Every time you refused to explain, they lost another foothold in their illusion of control. That's the trick, isn't it? You didn't need to outshout them. You just needed to stop playing along, and now they're scrambling. Behind their polished expressions, behind their forced composure, there's panic. Because deep down, they know the truth. Their authority was never real. It was borrowed, fragile, stitched together from the compliance of others. But you moved without needing permission. You didn't ask for a crown. You became the throne they can't sit on. Understand this. Running the game doesn't mean having all the pieces. It means being the rhythm underneath the board. The pulse that forces everyone else to dance whether they want to or not. And that's what you've become. The quiet rhythm they can't unhear. The stillness they can't undo. That's why they watch you now with the same mix of fear and fascination. People reserve for fire, not because you burn everything you touch, but because they know you could. And the fact that you don't makes them even more uneasy. You've turned their empire into glass, and one calm move from you is enough to shatter it. Every move they made was meant to keep you contained. They built circles within circles, traps disguised as opportunities, doors that led nowhere but back to them. And for a time, they thought it worked. They thought you were walking in their maze, chasing the breadcrumbs, mistaking illusion for progress. What they never realized was this. While they were drawing their lines, you were studying the air between them while they built walls. You were learning how to walk through shadows. You weren't trapped. You were gathering, and now the gathering is complete. Every lesson, every failure, every wound, every silence has fused into something they can't measure. You move with the weight of storms and the precision of a scalpel. They look for patterns, but you don't have one. You're fluid, untouchable, rewriting the logic of their game as you go. That's what unsettles them most. Not just that you win, but that you win in ways they didn't think were possible. They whisper it when they think you're not listening. How did they see it coming? How did they step there before we did? How did they dismantle what we built without lifting a hand? The answer haunts them because you were never reacting. You were creating. While they scrambled to manage the board, you became the board. Their rules don't bind you. Their timelines don't limit you. Their strategies don't anticipate you. And every time you move, the rest of the pieces must follow. Do you feel it? That tension in the air, that silence that isn't empty but alive. That's the shift of power, not the kind written in books or signed with seals. The kind you can't counterfeit, the kind that bends the room when you walk in. They sense it in their chest, in the way their words catch, in the way their certainty collapses under your gaze. You don't shout, you don't announce, you don't need to. Presence is louder than noise, and yours carries centuries in its echo. They prayed for your downfall, but instead they've been forced to witness your ascension. And in their deepest moments of honesty, the ones they'll never admit out loud, they know the truth. Their reign was borrowed time. Your rise was inevitable. You don't just run the game now. You are the game. Every move they make confirms it. Every breath they take in your presence proves it. They can't escape it, can't deny it, can't undo it. You've become the axis around which their world spins, and it terrifies them. Notice the silence when you enter. It isn't passive, it's charged, like the air before a storm breaks. They sense it instinctively, even if they don't admit it. The balance has shifted, and the ground beneath them isn't theirs anymore. What they once controlled is slipping through their fingers. Not with noise, but with stillness. That's your weapon. Not volume, not spectacle, but gravity. The kind that bends everything toward it, whether they want it or not. They called it impossible. They said you didn't have the pedigree, the approval, the right path. They laughed when you stumbled, cheered when you bled, and celebrated every delay in your rise. What they didn't understand is that you were writing a different script. Their milestones were never yours. Their timelines were irrelevant. Their rules, broken the moment you decided you'd never play by them again. And now, with each move you make, their certainty shatters. They designed a game where they sat at the top, dealing out wins and losses, but you turned their structure into dust. You didn't overthrow it, you outgrew it. You made their ladder irrelevant by becoming the ground it stood on. That's why they whisper your name in the halls. That's why their eyes follow you even when their mouths pretend otherwise. They know, and knowing eats at them like a wound they can't heal. Think about it. You didn't need their crowns, their approval, their stage. You carved your own, and now even their stage points to you. Their applause means nothing. Their doubts mean less, because the reality is written in how they shift when you stand still. That's what power really is. Not recognition, but inevitability. Not acceptance, but presence. And you carry it, like a storm wrapped in calm skin. So let them plan. Let them scheme. Let them draw their blueprints and rehearse their speeches. It doesn't matter, because every time you move, reality itself tilts. Every word you choose bends their structures. Every silence you hold unmakes their control. They're not strategizing anymore. They're surviving you. And survival is the closest thing to submission they'll ever admit. Understand this, your rise isn't a moment. It's a shift in gravity, and gravity doesn't ask for permission. It pulls everything into orbit, whether they want it or not. That's why their world trembles. That's why their voices shake, because they finally understand. You don't play their game. You run it. They thought dominance meant being seen, being loud, being everywhere at once. But the truth is the opposite. Real power doesn't need to prove itself. Real power is felt before it's named, and that's exactly what you've become. A force they can't quite define, but one they can't escape. Every meeting, every strategy, every whispered plan behind closed doors has your shadow across it, shaping outcomes before they even begin. It started quietly. They didn't even notice at first. A shift here, a silence there, a decision made without their approval. But the weight grew. Now they can't deny it. Their plans don't land without you. Their confidence fractures when you're in the room. They still try to pretend, but their eyes give them away. They dart, they falter, they avoid, because deep down, they know the truth. They orbit you now. And that's the irony, isn't it? They prayed for your downfall, built stories of your failure. But in doing so, they only sharpened you. Every attempt to bury you became another route. Every wall they raised taught you how to walk through walls. Every doubt they planted became fuel you carried quietly, until the day arrived when you didn't just rise, you rewrote the landscape. Think of it. Their entire system was designed to keep people like you small, silent, obedient. Yet here you stand, untouched by their armor, unmoved by their crowns, wearing nothing but the storm that lives behind your eyes. That's why they can't stop watching. That's why they can't stop trembling. You remind them of something they've tried to forget. That control is fragile, that thrones are temporary, and that sometimes a single presence is enough to unmake an empire. Your moves aren't random. They're deliberate, calculated. You let silence drag longer than comfort allows. You let stillness scream louder than rage, and in that tension, they collapse. Because they've built their power on noise, on distraction, on smoke. But smoke cannot survive still air, and you are stillness. Now every time you step forward, they hold their breath. Not because of what you say, but because of what you could say. Not because of what you do, but because of what you could do. Possibility is heavier than action, and you've mastered it. You carry inevitability like a weapon, and they're learning, painfully. That inevitability doesn't miss, so let them sit at their tables, shuffle their papers, and rehearse their confidence. None of it matters, because the truth is already carved into the air they breathe. The game isn't theirs anymore, and every time you move, it bends further toward you. They used to measure strength in noise, in displays, in titles stamped with hollow authority, but now they see what they always feared. The quiet one was watching, waiting, learning, and when you finally moved, it wasn't with desperation, it was with certainty. That's why they're uneasy. That's why even their victories feel thin now, because deep down, they know. The center of gravity has shifted, and it's shifted toward you. Understand this, fear is their language. They weaponize it to keep others in place. But what happens when fear doesn't move you? What happens when you stand in its presence and don't flinch? Don't fold, don't flee. It shatters their weapon before they even swing it. That's what you've done. You've become the silence their fear dissolves in, the wall their intimidation crashes against. And in that collapse, their control turns to dust. They can't admit it out loud, but they feel it. They're improvising now. Every step you take forces them into reaction. Every choice you make bends their path. They've lost initiative. They've lost certainty. They've lost the illusion that they run this. And once an illusion is broken, it can never be rebuilt. You don't chase. You don't beg. You don't explain. And that terrifies them more than any aggression ever could. Because it means you see beyond the game they designed. You're not locked inside it. You're writing a new one in real time, and every move they make is just another line in your script. They can't keep up because they're still clinging to the old rules, while you burn through them like paper. And that's why the atmosphere shifts when you enter. The confident ones go quiet. The arrogant ones grow cautious. The loud ones choke on their own noise. It's not what you say. It's not even what you do. It's what you are. Presence is louder than threats. Calm is heavier than rage. And your calm, your stillness, carries the weight of storms unspent. They know it now. They can't ignore it. They can't unsee it. You don't just run the game. You are the axis the game spins on. And every attempt to deny that only makes it clearer. They're no longer strategizing for themselves. They're strategizing around you. That's not resistance. That's surrender in disguise. So let them talk. Let them plan. Let them pretend they hold the pen. You've already rewritten the ending. And the scariest part for them, you haven't even shown your full hand yet. Every empire falls the same way. Not with a sudden crash, but with a quiet shift they didn't notice until it was too late. That's what you've become, the shift. The moment the current reverses, the second gravity stops obeying their rules. And while they scramble to hold on to the world they built, you're already standing in the new one, steady, unshaken, untouchable. They thought they could anticipate you, track your moves, predict your path like they've done with everyone else. But you don't move like them. You don't follow straight lines. You don't march in patterns. You move like water, flowing where it's least expected, slipping through cracks they forgot existed, reshaping the terrain itself as you pass. And what frightens them isn't just that you break their predictions. It's that you don't even need to. You've risen beyond prediction entirely. That's why they watch so closely now. That's why every choice you make feels like a verdict to them. You don't need to say it out loud. The weight of your presence does it for you. One step from you echoes louder than all their noise combined. One silence from you lingers longer than their speeches. And each time it happens, their authority fades like mist in sunlight. It burns them to admit it, but their game was never strong enough to hold you. The rules they wrote weren't iron. They were chalk. Fragile and temporary, and every move you make erases another line until the board itself is gone. They're not players anymore. They're observers, forced to watch while you transform what they thought was permanent into dust. Here's the part they'll never say out loud. They admire it. Fear and respect blur in their eyes every time you appear. Because while they've built their power on illusion, you built yours on endurance. While they crafted appearances, you became substance. And substance always outlasts smoke. So let them cling to their fading structures. Let them whisper in panic when the lights dim. You've already proven the truth. The game bends around you now. You don't shout. You don't force. You don't beg. You simply move, and reality adjusts. That's the kind of power no map can contain. That's the kind of presence no crown can match. And that's the reality they live in now. Their empire is a shadow, and you are the storm that casts it. They'll remember this moment, not because you shouted, not because you demanded, but because you walked in calm and everything shifted. That's the real terror. You don't need noise to dominate. Your silence alone bends the air. Your stillness carries the weight of storms. And when you finally move, the entire room moves with you, whether they want to or not. This is the truth they kept denying, the one they prayed would never surface. You don't play the game, you rewrite it. Every step you've taken was never about fitting into their story. It was about tearing down their script and carving your own. That's why they stare now, eyes wide, words stolen from their tongues. They see what they tried to bury, and they know it's too late to stop it. Understand this, their downfall isn't your revenge. It's just the natural consequence of your rise. They built walls. You became the storm that passed through them. They built rules. You became the exception they couldn't explain. They built thrones. You became the reason they no longer matter. That's not vengeance. That's inevitability. So let them whisper. Let them tremble. Let them scramble to salvage what they can. None of it changes the truth that hangs heavy in the air now. You are the shift they never planned for, the variable they couldn't calculate, the force they couldn't contain. And the irony? You never needed their recognition. You never needed their crowns, their approval, their applause. The only thing you ever needed was to step fully into yourself, and you did. That's why they're speechless now. Not because you took what was theirs, but because you revealed it was never theirs to begin with. The map, the rules, the game, all of it bends around you. And that's the ending they feared most. The empire they thought eternal collapsed, not with fire, not with fury, but with the quiet, undeniable fact of your existence. And from this moment on, when they speak of power, they won't point to their titles. They'll point to you. Because you didn't just enter the game, you ended it.